Hey, good morning or good afternoon. Happy Sunday. It's April 6th, 2025. And if you add that up, it's the 1910 And we're in Aries season, the first sign. This is a 10 1 day. And so we have this oneness, but it's the universal oneness. It's the oneness that starts from within. And when we think about this season is building an identity, and we have obfuscating, obscuring, dissolving Neptune in Aries since last week, you can feel this internal conflict, much like your own internal civil war regarding what you are here to give and receive. And the conflict is inside, much like the civil war that started the last time that Neptune went into Aries in 1861. So, what does it mean for Aries Libra people who are, the axis of relationships? It just means that if you're in Aries, you're dissolving your sense of identity, who you thought you were. Maybe too narrow and too focused in on the moment instead of taking a long view, or at least contemplating the long view of your connections and the meaning of your relationships and what you're learning and how you're evolving, Aries, when you're not around other people. So you don't just jump to conclusions or do something without any type of thought or reflective thought. And so Neptune says, pause, breathe a little bit. Yes, these last 14 years have been about you living in multiple time zones and dimensions, but it's important that you realize that as you move into your complementary sign of Libra, you do consider another person's perspective. And Libra, that's where you're here to kind of understand that trust, betrayal, forgiveness. So you tend to be trusting unless you've been really wounded and traumatized. So you tend to be trusting. So this is about dissolving that noble self image of overlooking or overgiving or whatever, because that's an ego attachment, Libra. So realizing that everyone is responsible for their own inner work. You can role model it, but realize that you don't have to go in and encroach upon someone's evolution, because Neptune in Aries is about your understanding, Libra, where that growth and that compassion begins at home, begins within, and it's inner work for a reason. Right. And so now then we go to the axis of security, or what I like to call nowadays managing one's emotional attachments. And that's the, Taurus-Scorpio axis. And Taurus, with Neptune and Aries, your 12th house, Neptune loves the 12th house. So you can kind of feel like this sense that your ancestors are guiding you. Now, you're not going to lose that realism that you're here to develop, Taurus. You're just opening your value system, maybe recognizing how to learn through other people's mistakes or to learn by osmosis, or to be able to set your intentions, Taurus, before you start any action. Look, I've had more loss in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm Scorpio, so I'm at the other end of your cosmic circle. And part of it is that I've artificially separated the physical material with the spiritual uh, evolutionary. And yes, I'm in this physical body, so I still have these challenges. But that's Taurus and Scorpio with Neptune and Aries, get on a mundane level, get a second opinion about any psyche soma, any health issue. Get a whole support system. Acupuncturists, reflexologists, IV nutrition work. I mean, get all of that while Scorpio listening to your intuition as healer. And because the Taurus Scorpio axis is definitely about survival. Yes, but it's not survival only. It's about how do we thrive? How do we get out of thinking poor or thinking what is prosperity, but feeling like you can have enough money, enough time to spend it, enough joy, enough passion, and all of that. Okay, Scorpio and Taurus? And then we have the axis of inspiration and wishes coming true, the Gemini Sag. And I created the term exaggeration to say at what point does the exaggeration of a fact become an out and out lie. And Sagittarius is known to do that because of the enthusiasm, the spirit energy. And with Neptune in fiery ass Aries, and Aries is your fun director, Sag, you may feel a sense of it's time for me to go on yet another quest, and as long as it includes an ancestral bent or some historical piece of the past, voila, go at it. And Gemini with Neptune and Aries, it's about dissolving those long held dreams and making them more inclusive beyond, early childhood or beyond the neighborhood or beyond, the attachment to race or class or gender, and getting to understand yourself as a universal cosmic being, or at least one of those twins is out there in Andromeda or Orion's belt or whatever, and just allowing yourself to think or to imagine beyond limitations, Gemini. And laughter is your best medicine because I'm sure Neptune in Aries is going to have you thinking or imagining you're going in one direction, and the comic cosmos is going to have you going in some other direction, Gemini. So Gemini Sag, allow your inspiration to come through you without identification to said inspiration. Well, allow the communication to come through you without being concerned about the impact on others. If you set the intention to just be loving and authentic, that's what will also be communicated. And then the axis of security and responsibility, Cancer-Capricorn. Um, you know, you're more than just being responsible. It's also the spectrum of tenderness, the cosmic belly, the undercurrent, the tenderness of the Cancerian energy with the toughness. He was tough or she or they were tough but fair of Capricorn, but it's an axis. So every Capricorn has that soft, tortoise underbelly, right? Or that you take the shell off. You get these metaphors. And Cancer has the shell over its soft, but it's an imbalance of soft hard. The yin and the yang, the integration of them both. And Neptune and Aries being a challenging energy to Capricorn and Cancer, from the Cancer perspective, Neptune as Aries is saying, what role have you been playing for the last 14 years? And what is that role rooted to? Is it some outmoded traditional family? Has the fat lady begun to sing? In terms of it's time for you to get off the stage as it relates to that particular role? And is there trauma in that role? Whenever you say Cancer, this is how my ancestors did it, or I'm not going to confront someone older because of, you're denying or not giving, or you're blocking the universal's evolutionary blessings to that individual. If you're still breathing, then you can still evolve. I don't care if you're 8, 28, 38, 58, 68, 88, 108. Doesn't matter. As long as there's breath, there's evolution. Yes, and making excuses for family members because of their bad behaviors or mistaken beliefs, no bueno. Capricorn, with Neptune and Aries, your work is about how are you loving at home? Do you give more outside of the home? Are you more understanding to the people you work with, or more aware of your reputation in the outer world and that ambition than you are in the inner world of when you come home? And if you live alone, that's not the issue, Capricorn. It's how do you treat yourself? Yeah, 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 yeah. How do you treat yourself? Because Saturn is about to move into Aries following Neptune on May 24th. So you can already feel that if your inner dreams are not rooted in your inner authenticity, Capricorn, you're like a tree, a palm tree in a hurricane. You don't have the deep enough roots. Now, the axis of individualism, if we're going to be all Jungian, individuation, Leo and Aquarius, then it's important that the Neptune and Aries, well, Leo and Aries, y'all are like, two peas in the pod. So the Neptune and Aries for you Leos is dissolving your attachment to religion, dissolving your attachment to a larger belief system that may be based on half truths. So it's about you getting beyond just geocentric human centered reality, Leo, and coming from that heart of individualism. How would you make decisions if you were from another planet, Leo, or if you were just observing people for the first time and you had no history? I know when people buy gift certificates for their loved ones, for me, I ask that they tell me nothing about their person. I don't want to know any backstory. I just want to look at the cards. I want to look at the chart and just have what wisdom come through me. Yeah. And so, Leo, this Neptune and Aries is about dissolving your attachment to being right, or even the thought that you want the feedback. Because the more that you lessen that attachment, the more wisdom you're going to get. So take some risk. Yeah, some calculated risk. And that's where your complementary sign of Aquarius really embodies what other people think of them as none of their business. But Aquarius, now I'm talking to you, can get caught up in the actual recognizing the feedback, or being able to recognize those microaggressions or micro expressions and shift their story just enough to parse that story, Aquarius. And so Neptune and Aries is about Aquarius really understanding the inspirational power, inspirational energy of your speech and your stories. So make like a badger, because badgers store the bones of their prey. And so make like a badger, Aquarius, and store those stories while at the same time knowing that you are an inspirational role model. If you can't model, if you can't practice what you preach and only preach what you're practicing, Aquarius, no bueno. Just, you know, show through your actions, because that's what Leo helps you do, Aquarius, is showing your love through your actions, not through your speech. Y'all got it going on, Leo and Aquarius, in terms of being able to make the most of this Neptune and Aries energy. And last and certainly not least is the axis of service, the Virgo-Pisces energy. And as such, the I believe of the Pisces and the I analyze of the Virgo, and it's the analyzing of the Virgo that the Neptune and Aries is getting you to dissolve how you act in relationship. So if you tend to go to extremes, Virgo, and that's all mutable signs are learning to use their observational, investigating minds to discern when they're at an extreme so they can transform, not merely change on the surface. Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, and Sagittarius. So Virgo, with a Neptune dissolving in Aries, is teaching you how you've attached to certain roles in relationship based on past pain, past trauma, or future expectation of, as my grandmother would say, borrowing trouble. And so it's the Virgo energy. If you can dissolve going that the past is just going to repeat, or dissolve the anxiety about the future is going to show up this way because of the past, then this Neptune and Aries can give you a sense of staying present and be uniquely connected to each situation, moment to moment, as an awakened person or your own Buddha. And then Pisces, I'm sure you're pretty happy that now, not happy, but content that now that Neptune has moved into your Aries, which is your second house of, what do I need to survive on this planet? What do I need to thrive on this planet? What makes me feel good about being in this physical body? you may start to believe those, to dissolve those beliefs, Pisces, where being in the world but not of the world, all of those separating mistaken ideas, and moment to moment, like your complementary energy, love is in the details, Virgo, you can feel a sense of wholeness. Our raw material, ourrawmaterial.com, that's another channel. You may feel a sense of perfection and completeness in each moment, Pisces. Saturn is going to leave your sign on May 24th. So that's going to also give you a kind of a lightening up or new beginning with that trust, betrayal, forgiveness energy that begins at home. That you'll just trust yourself more, Pisces. I appreciate that you listened, all of you, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to www.beliefisinotrequired. It's also on ourrawmaterial.com and a channel on YouTube that Tavish Carter has been holding those videos down. I really appreciate that. And then there's an Astro, our raw material, Astro RM. And, we're looking and examining ways in which Tavish and I could begin a podcast around uh, integrating the 12 pillars of our raw material with the 12 signs of astrology. So let me know your thoughts. And again, I appreciate your support. We both do.